So, what is the best real estate investment to have? That's a big, audacious question for a lot of reasons. You're talking about different opportunities, different asset classes. There's a lot that goes into that. But I would like to share with you some of my experiences and my ideas on the real estate and the asset classes. Now, a lot has changed in real estate over the last 15 years. I think we can all agree upon that. Technology is coming in, disrupting industries like hotels, disrupting through Airbnb, right? There's just been so much happening in the retail space with online businesses coming in. And then we had COVID, which laid a blow to a lot of real estate asset classes, including apartment buildings. There's a lot of apartment complex investors that's really started to get worried about their investment because they couldn't collect rent. Now, this was unprecedented and unforeseen, but so was housing when it crashed in 2008. What's happened in real estate to me has been very interesting since I got started in the early 2000s. The shift of mindset, capital, and where it's all going. Because I got started in an industry that was, well, kind of like a junkyard. It was not the most popular industry out there. In fact, I didn't tell people that we invested in it because it was a little embarrassing because I knew that every serious real estate investor invests in multifamily. Nothing else, right? And I obviously wasn't because I invested in metal boxes with cement. And every real estate investor knows that you get started in small multifamily like duplexes or single family rentals because housing market will never go down. Housing prices will never lose money. Now, I actually believe this is true, but it's only true in the long run, not the short run, which we can save for another day. But there were some golden gooses, right, in real estate. There were these absolute known facts that would never be disputed. And in the last 10 years, all of the traditional thinking has been challenged. During that 10 years, investors have had to look at alternative investments and ideas, and they've started looking at niche industries like mobile home parks and self-storage. When they actually looked at them, they found out these industries aren't even that niche, and the economics behind them are fantastic. This was something that we identified early on in self-storage, was the economics of self-storage were really good and going to last a long time. Whether it was popular or not, our return was good and the economics were good, so the outlook looked good. That just made sense to us. There was other assets that we didn't like the economics in, like retail. The internet was changing a lot fast, and we worried about how that would be affected. We didn't like single-family homes, but not because of why you're thinking. It's not because we knew that there was some giant collapse coming, right? I wish I could say we were that smart, but we weren't. We didn't know that. We just looked at one thing simply, and that was cash flow. And this is really what it comes down to when you're looking at the best real estate investment. This is an investment. So my question is, what is your return? Particularly for me, I care about the cash flow, and I care about cash flow for a big reason. Cash flow allows you to survive ups and downs of the markets because I play a long-term game, not a short-term game. So I want to be able to survive the ebbs and flows and the contractions and expansions in the market, and if there's disruptions and what's going to happen, because I can't predict the future, neither can you, nobody can. So when looking at that environment, cash flow is king for that reason, but another reason. In investing, the name of the game is compounding, right? You need to compound your returns. Cash flow allowed me to collect cash and redeploy that cash at a known rate of return. That allowed me to grow a lot quicker. Now, I also like simplicity because I'm a simple guy. Maybe I'm not that smart, but I really like simplicity. It just has to make sense. And in the early 2000s, lots of investment ideas and tactics weren't making sense. So we stuck to what we knew. And that was this little box, self-storage. So over the last decade, we've seen a massive change up in asset classes from retail, right? You have hotels, which hotels got attacked by Airbnb. Then they got attacked by COVID. Multifamily, which I, for one, thought, hands down was the safest asset. I'd still probably argue that it may be. But multifamily is a big game, and there's large capital expenditures. And that made me nervous. And at the end of the day, I thought, if I don't want to kick out a single mother and her kids, I probably shouldn't be playing that game. And so I didn't. Now, whether somebody was renting from me in my box and putting their stuff on the cement floor and I needed to kick them out, that I have no problem with somebody losing their junk. So I was totally fine with that. I just didn't want to put kids out. Now, let me be very clear when I say this. All of these real estate assets can make you wealthy. And I don't believe in people that say necessarily there's one. There's one that's best for me and maybe for you, and I'll explain why here in a second. But you can make a lot of money, and I have very close friends that make a killing in all of these asset classes, all real estate, farming, right? Land deals, all of it. Fix and flips, rental, single family, multifamily, retail, industrial, mobile home parks. There's pros and cons to all of them. So why do I think, or why was self-storage best for me? There's a handful of reasons that I think it's not only best for me, but it is best for anybody trying to get started in self-storage. Now, while all the other assets are great, and while there's tons of opportunity in them, I find that self-storage is not only resilient during hard times and performs extremely well, but we know that its margin's bigger. So it represents right around a 40% margin, which is substantially larger than the other real estate asset classes. Its performance over the last 20 years has outperformed all of them by leaps and bounds. Why is this? Why has self-storage done so well while others haven't? And I think the economics needs to be understood. That's the price of real estate goes up. So for individuals, they need more space because our ability to consume has dropped. So we can now consume faster and cheaper than ever before. But it's more than people just storing their stuff. There's also been the disruption in technology, which has led to an office space. I don't want to say apocalypse. Office space isn't going through an apocalypse or anything. It's not being affected like retail, but it has led to rethinking during COVID. And also office space had a hard time during 2008, as we saw a lot of vacancies in an overbuilt market, like a lot of asset classes. But now we're starting to rethink the work environment altogether. Do we really need to be in an office? Or can we work from home? And two, we can have people work from lots of places, and we need to distribute lots of goods and services, and people can do that through the internet, so communication's more efficient. Well, self-storage acts as a mediator between a lot of companies and pharmaceutical, right? We last mile. We're storing products that companies need to serve. Goods and services are all being done out of a storage facility. So we've seen a massive surge in people using storage facility for business purposes, not just consumer purposes, because brick and mortar, just like housing, is more expensive. And cash flow is king in business, right? So we've seen this increased demand in self-storage. And it's been very resilient because when things get hard, people utilize it more. When we started out, people thought that it would be not impossible, but it was unimaginable that somebody would default on their home before they defaulted on their 10 by 10, which doesn't make economic sense because the home costs $1,200 a month while the 10 by 10 costs $50, or whatever the numbers are. The point being is the burden of the home is vastly more than the burden of a self-storage. And when people are displaced, they need somewhere to have an anchor and to put their stuff. Also, as baby boomers are now retiring and going through that age, all the space that they need is lowering, yet all the stuff that they have, they don't want to get rid of. And they're giving it to their children. Their children don't want to get rid of. And now I know what you're saying, millennials. Millennials don't use storage because they're minimalist. That's actually not true at all. So millennials are the largest self-storage users by far. So self-storage has a very bright future, we believe. Yet its access to the industry is what I think makes it the best. For an individual looking to get into commercial real estate or looking to scale, you can pick up storage facilities sometimes the same price as a fourplex or a duplex in certain markets. This leads to a mass supply of accessible commercial real estate for individual investors because 74% of the industry is owned by individuals, or as we call it, mom and pops. So cash flow and capital expenditures are low, which creates stable cash flow, is probably the first reason I think self-storage is the best. Second is accessibility. It's your ability to actually get into the industry. It's your ability to perform in that industry and to grow in the industry. And you have the cash flow to do it. And then third, I would really say, is the resilience of the asset class. It is very resilient in both good and bad times. It's very stable. So, I'm not saying that any of those other assets are bad by any means. And you can make tons of money in all investment strategies as long as they're sound, right? And there's even, when you look at other asset classes that are failing, there's lots of opportunity. Of course, there's opportunity in self-storage. So we've bought office buildings. We've bought bankrupt Kmart's, Sears, I think at JCPenney's, and we've turned those into storage facilities. So we're taking advantage of that. But there's always opportunity, whether in good times and bad times in any asset class. But because of those three things, that's why I think self-storage takes number one.